Studies show that 10 to 20% of all people love their job or are very passionate about their work. On the other end of the spectrum, about 10 to 20% of people absolutely hate their jobs. And then the rest, the 60 to 80% in the middle, find themselves in that place where they don't really hate it, they don't really love it, it's just something they have to do because it pays the bills and it gets the job done in their life, so they just put up with it and deal with it. I don't know where you are in that. I know I've been in both places. I remember the summer before my wife and I got married, that summer I worked at Black & Decker. That might sound glorious, but it was a 12 to 8, as in midnight to 8 a.m. shift on an assembly line where we put things in packages and then a machine sealed them so they could go to the retail store. So I would spend 8 hours counting glue sticks, making sure there was 12 in each package for a whole night. I hated that job, but it was getting me ready to get married and saving up some money, so I did it. And we've all had jobs maybe that we've hated, and I'm thankful today to say I have a job that I love and I'm passionate about. But my desire for all of you, for every single person, is that you do find something that you're passionate about and that you know that your work, it actually matters. And it matters to you and it matters to God and it has some meaning in it for you. Hard work paying off is something I think that every single one of us wants to know. Does what I do matter? Does it pay off? And I know the immediate payoff for a lot of you is every other week, right? When you look and you see that paycheck or the pay stub or the direct deposit, and you're like, all right, it's there. And you want to see that number keep going up. But it's more to that than that in life. I know there's more to us than just the paycheck. And the book of Proverbs that we are in dispenses a ton of wisdom that relates to our work. Whether it's schoolwork, if you're a high school student or a college student, listen, this message is for you as well. Your schoolwork matters. Whether you're maybe retired or you don't have to work, but you volunteer, your volunteer work matters. If you're in the middle of your career, we all want to know there's a payoff for what we do. We also know there's an opposite reaction. There's negative consequences to laziness, and the book of Proverbs has a lot to say about that. We'll hit on that today, but I just want you to know as we begin today that this book of Proverbs is an amazing blessing we have in our lives. And so I want to take a little poll and find out how many of you have stuck with it so far. We're on day 12. Along with the rest of the church, you've been reading the devotion and a chapter of Proverbs every day so far. Raise your hand. Look around. Some of you are looking around and feeling convicted right now, but it's okay. You can get started any day. But every chapter is just full of wisdom that's practical for our daily lives. And so today, as we continue the series, what I committed to do was to preach a message that launches out of the chapter that correlates with the day of the month. So we're on January the 12th. So we're in Proverbs chapter 12 as we begin today. And today's title is the payoff of hard work. There's a lot about the benefits of hard work in the book of Proverbs. So we'll begin with verse 14. Chapter 12, verse 14. Solomon said, wise words bring many benefits, and hard work brings rewards. So I don't know how each of you feel, because in a room this size, with this many people, we all have different feelings about our work. And some of you, whether you're a surgeon or you're a fast food cashier right now, you have a feeling about your work. Whether you're doing volunteer work or you're doing your homework, there's a feeling that you have about your work. And some of you, you thrive under pressure. Like you like to be pressured in the way that it produces hard work in your life, and you don't mind that at all. You like hard work. Some of you can't stand thinking about what has to happen tomorrow morning. the getting up and going to work. You feel like Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 or whatever your hours are is like a prison for you. And you can't stand that, and you wish it was different. You wish you felt different about that. You know, when Jesus in the New Testament in John 10 said, I've come to give you life and life to the full, or life abundantly, when he said that, he wasn't just talking about Friday night to Sunday night, okay? He was talking about every day of your life, every hour of your life. He wants you to live a fulfilling, abundant life, but what does that mean in relation to our work? And this book of Proverbs is is full of principles related to job satisfaction, job success, how beneficial it is for us to be disciplined and work hard. So we're going to discover 4 principles today, 4 principles of hard work. And after each principle, I'm going to give you a payoff. Because I think all of us want to know there's a payoff. Beyond the paycheck, we want to know there's a payoff to the hard work that Solomon says we need to put into life. So as you've read, and I don't know about you, but as I've read each chapter again in Proverbs, what you find is like some chapters have this cohesive theme, right? The whole chapter is kind of centered around the same theme. And then there are other chapters where it's like Solomon's just all over the place, right? It's bits of wisdom on all different topics. And that's what I found in chapter 12. It's a lot of different topics, but as I prepared this week, the framework of this message is built around this idea that he talks a lot about in chapter 12, hard work and discipline pays off. So check out how he starts the chapter, verse number 1. He said, to learn, you must love discipline. It is stupid to hate correction. He says discipline, hard work is essential. Learning what works and what doesn't work is wisdom. He bluntly says it's stupid to hate correction, which is basically saying it is stupid for us to stop learning. And this leads us to our first principle today. And we're talking about the way of the wise, right? So the wise never stop learning. The wise never stop learning. Never think, I've made it in life. I have life figured out. I've arrived. I've done all the work I needed to do. I can just coast and take it easy now. No matter who we are, no matter what we've done, we need to keep learning our entire lifetime. And I want to tell you something. Learning is hard work. Learning requires discipline. It requires openness. It requires humility. So right up front, I want to give you the payoff. What is the payoff of working hard at learning? It's continued success. I think most of us want to have success in our lives. Nobody would say, I don't want to be successful. But success is not static. It's not a one and done thing, like I was successful, now I'm good for the rest of my life. There's this pressure to always be successful. I mean, you look at sports, right, and you feel that when you listen to all the coaches talking about their teams and winning and losing. Like, what have you done lately? And I think we all know that we want to continue to succeed in life. Prospering in life is not a one and done event. And the most impressive people that I see in my life are those who are lifelong learners. That doesn't matter how old they are. They're still learning. They're still growing. In Proverbs chapter 19, verse 8, Solomon, to acquire wisdom is to love yourself, and people who cherish understanding will prosper. Another translation says, those who love learning will succeed. A love of learning leads to success. And don't you realize today that there's so much to learn? Isn't it amazing? So those of you that have been alive a little longer, like me, I guess now, there's a lot to learn. And we have so much information right at our fingertips. We really have no excuse to stop learning. And he said, people who cherish understanding will prosper. And when you hear the word prosper, you immediately probably think of wealth, right? Like material wealth. And that is obvious. We understand that. Those who keep learning have a greater chance of prospering with material things. But there's so much more. The more you learn about how relationships work, the more you can prosper relationally. The more you learn about God, the more you can prosper spiritually. I mean, the more you learn about how to handle your emotions, the better you are emotionally. That all makes sense, doesn't it? There's so much to learn today, and we can continue to do that our entire lives. And when you read a book, I mean, that can just make you feel smarter, right? Because you've learned something you didn't know. Listening to a podcast that stretches your mind, that's good. Reading Proverbs every day makes you a little bit wiser. And a lot of you work in jobs that require continuing education. There's a reason for that. The world is changing. There's more to learn, and that leads to continued success. So this principle of never stop learning, I think if you're like me, you immediately think, okay, I need to get in the books. I need to get more books, listen to more podcasts. I need to get online and research things more. All that is true. But let's not forget some of the things that Solomon points out in Proverbs that are ways to learn that we could overlook. And the first one you might not like, but we need to learn from our critics. Do you have critics in your life? Somebody told me after the first service, if you're married, you definitely have a critic in your life, right? I mean, we all have critics. We have people that, maybe if you're, more well-known in bigger circles, you have more critics. I get that. But if you stand for anything and have a belief and you do anything, say anything, there's going to be people that will criticize us. And you can learn more from criticism than spending thousands of dollars on a seminar or a college course. Now, in Proverbs chapter 12, verse 1, let me read that again. Solomon said, anyone who loves learning accepts correction, but a person who hates being corrected is stupid. Who likes being corrected? Anybody here I love it when people correct me. Like, who loves that? Like, I think our natural reaction is to be defensive, to be angry, to actually hate it. I mean, I don't like being wrong, and I hate being corrected. You know what I hate even more than that? I hate when the Bible calls me stupid. Like, that hit me this week more than anything in my preparation. Was like, the Bible calls me stupid. And I am stupid sometimes in my life when I'm defensive and I'm angry. And I say, well, there's a lot of criticism we all get. It isn't all really relevant or valid. What do you do with that? I always tell people, treat it like chewing gum. You can get gum, you chew it, get the flavor out of it, and then you spit it out. You don't swallow it, right? You don't take it all in. It's not all good, but there's probably something good in that you need to hear. Even if we don't like it, we should learn from other people. Our posture should be to find out what's true, not like they're so wrong and be defensive. Another way that Solomon says to learn, not just from critics, but from our failures. If you think of the super successful people and happy people in your life, and if you get in your mind, man, they just must be just successful all the time. They never fail. You're dead wrong. They fail all the time. They've learned how to fail forward. They've learned how to use their failures to learn. In Proverbs 24:16, Solomon said, the godly may trip 7 times, but they will get up again. But one disaster is enough to overthrow the wicked. I truly believe the greatest lessons in our lives we learn from our failures because we're humbled. If we get humbled enough to listen, God has our attention, and we can learn the most through our failures. And also, of course, Solomon points out the obvious that we might miss. We got to learn from God. He's the ultimate source of wisdom. Proverbs 2:6, for the Lord grants wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. I believe any truth has its ultimate source in God. He might not get the credit, but I believe it comes from him. God teaches us through everything that happens in our lives. But the greatest way that God teaches us is through his word, the Bible. If you will read it, you'll learn. Like in Proverbs, you can learn how to treat your customers better, how to motivate your employees, how to have the right goals for yourself or for your business. We cannot overemphasize enough how important it is to consume God's word and get his wisdom every day of our lives. So today it's all about the payoff. We've got to work hard. Someone says work hard, but there's a payoff for working hard. If you will never stop learning, you'll have continued success in your life. And I think that's something we all want. Principle number 2. The wise are diligent planners. How many of you in the room would say by raising your hand, you are a planner? You like to plan. You like to put a plan together. Okay, it's about half the room. The rest of you can thank us because we make it go, because I know some of us are really into that and some of us are very diligent about it. And if you're in a group, if I'm in a group, this is how I am. If there's somebody else in the group that's really good at planning, I'm fine with it. But if nobody is really that type of person to take charge and make a plan, I will do it. And I'll be happy to do it because I want to ensure that things go smoothly and peacefully, right? And planning is good and planning is biblical. Diligent planning, though, it's hard work. Some of you who aren't into it as much, you think, oh, it's easy for them because they're gifted. It's still hard work, even if you're gifted in planning. But it's absolutely something that God blesses in our lives, the hard work of planning. So in Proverbs 12 again, verse 5-7, Solomon said, the plans of the godly are just. The advice of the wicked is treacherous. The wicked die and disappear, but the family of the godly stands firm. So he says the plans of the godly, leading to a blessing for the family. And he's not just talking about any old plans, but he says plans that are just, which means plans that are righteous, that are honoring to God. God blesses a righteous plan. And what is the blessing? What is the payoff of this principle of planning? He says at the end, the family of the godly stands firm. So the payoff is a firm standing. You say, well, what is a firm standing? What does that mean to me? A firm standing means that you're going to be somebody that can last. You're going to be somebody that can survive the hard times. When trials come into your life, when storms hit your family will still be standing strong because you've been diligent at your plan, and it's been a godly plan for your life. Always be diligent. The wise are those who are willing to make a plan and have the diligence and fortitude to stick with it. You see that all through Proverbs. It teaches us again and again that success and significance aren't really so much a matter of our intelligence as it is our diligence to follow a plan. I mean, I don't know about you, but sometimes you look at people and you say, man, you see their success and you're like, they are so smart. The secret is they might not actually be that smart, but what they've done is they've been diligent. I saw this one-line poem this week. People we look at and we think they're geniuses, and it said this: genius, the power that dazzles mortal eyes, is oft but perseverance in disguise. Sometimes it's just about sticking with a plan, and you end up looking like a genius. I think most of us would consider Albert Einstein to be a genius. And Albert Einstein said, I think for months, for years, 99 times the conclusion is false, but the 100th time I'm right. And sometimes we look at people and think, man, they're just so smart, they're so wise. What they've done is they've made a plan, and they worked toward that plan, and they had the diligence to stick with that plan. And I think we all should acknowledge that planning and diligence is hard work. There's something that keeps us from it today. There's something I think that we are fighting against in our culture today that keeps us from good planning and hard work. Proverbs 21:5, Solomon said, good planning and hard work lead to prosperity, but hasty shortcuts lead to poverty. I believe being hasty is one of the biggest enemies of diligent planning. We are hasty. We live in such a hurry. And there are times when things need to get going. They need to get done fast. Like, you don't have a lot of time. And I don't know, I get irritated. You do too, probably. There's people in your life that overthink everything. Like, make a decision. Like, they overplan everything. Like, we don't need to overplan this. We don't need to overthink it. Let's just go. Let's make a decision. Where are we going to eat? Let's do it, right? Whatever it is. But always looking for shortcuts is a huge problem today in our culture. Hear me on this. There's no shortcut to wisdom. There's no shortcut to being a disciple of Jesus. There's no microwave type of faith that really lasts. Being hasty, I think, is something that we're trained to be because we want everything to move quickly, because it's the culture we live in. Like with our computers. We want a computer that's fast. At home, right now, I have an old iMac computer that I use at home. Do my finances on it. Some days if I'm working from home, has a nice big screen, I'm working on that computer, it is slow. Especially when I have multiple things going on at the same time. And sometimes even it's so slow, so much running that my keyboard and my mouse, they disappear, and then they come back, and I just wait. And I think, sometimes what God is doing is he's using this to teach me to slow down and to be patient. My wife says, no, you're just really cheap. That's your problem. You need to get a new computer. She might be right, but the fact of the matter is we live in that culture where everything, we want it right now. We have a computer. A lot of you do in your hand. A lot of you have your computer out right now in your hand because you're taking notes and reading the Bible, I'm sure. But you have that in your hand. And, we want that thing to work fast. And when it starts slowing down, that drives us crazy. And sometimes it slows down at the worst time. For me, the worst time for that phone to get slow is when I'm in the McDonald's line and they need my 4-digit discount code, right? You know what I'm talking about? It's like, come on, they're waiting for me. There's a line. What is that number? And, we all get hasty with our lives because that's the culture we live in. And I think what we need to be reminded of here is that we got to have a plan, and we got to be diligent and be patient to work that plan when it doesn't go as quickly as we want. Maybe it needs to be tweaked, but we still need to stick with a plan. And this fast-paced world is just sometimes an enemy to that in our lives, to being a success in the way God wants us to be. So remember this, a firm, strong standing is the result we want. That's the payoff, if you're willing to create a plan and stick with it. Here's principle number 3. Number 3, the wise are never lazy. That word lazy, that can be difficult to define, can't it? I mean, you can look at people and like make assumptions. I mean, even in your own family, right? You can look at people and they're being lazy. What is lazy? I think taking time off is a good thing. That's not lazy. Downtime is not lazy. Sunday afternoon naps watching football and golf or whatever you like, that's not being lazy, of course. Vacations aren't lazy. We should do that. The Bible tells us that one out of every 7 days should be a Sabbath day, a day of rest and worship, and pulling away from our work, hard work. That's not lazy. So how do we define that? I think laziness can creep into our lives. I think we need to be aware of it. Holiday season is an awesome time to pull back from routines. And if you're a student and you're out of school, it's awesome for 2 weeks. And then, thank the Lord, he gives us snow, right? Despite what Christy says, snow's beautiful. And it's beautiful. And, the kids get 2 more days to extend their break. Like, how awesome is that? But laziness can set in, right? And it's like, how do you define that? And I think teenage years are breeding grounds for laziness. We have to be wise as parents. Like, how much sleep do they actually need, And how many chores do we require them to do? And then when they're old enough to drive and have a car, how many hours should they have to work and what should they have to pay for? We don't want to spoil them so they don't understand hard work. We don't want them to be lazy because as adults, we know the benefits of hard work far outweigh the benefits of being lazy, but the battle we fight between laziness and hard work. So Solomon had a lot to say about it. In chapter 12, verse 24, he said, work hard and become a leader. Be lazy and become a slave. Do you want to be a leader, or do you always want to be bossed around by somebody else who is a leader? Leaders, they're not leaders by accident. It doesn't just happen. It takes hard work to become a leader and to stay a leader. Verse 27, he said, lazy people don't even cook the game they catch, but the diligent make use of everything they find. Lazy people, it's kind of a funny verse to me. They go halfway. Anybody here like to hunt and fish? Any hunters or fishers? I'm not going to embarrass. Really, Amy? Okay, all right, cool. I was picturing you hunting and killing a deer. I can't imagine. But when you hunt and fish, can you imagine you do that? If you're doing it for food, and then you're just too lazy, you get it, but then you can't go as far as cooking it. He's saying, how foolish is that? He said, wise people are able to take all the resources that they have and use them all in a wise way, not wasting. He said in chapter 10, verse 4, lazy people are soon poor, hard workers get rich. This is an obvious tidbit of wisdom for us. Laziness can lead to poverty. Hard work can lead to wealth. And I know some of you want to say, hey, I object to that statement. Remember, these are wise sayings in Proverbs. These are not 100% every time this is absolutely true, because we know there are lazy people who are rich. They fell into a big inheritance or they got lucky. We also know there are people that work really hard and sometimes have some bad luck or misfortune in life. But this is a principle that remains true. If you keep working hard, you're going to have more financial security. If you work less and are lazy, you're going to have less financial security. Chapter 12, verse 11, he said, a hard worker has plenty of food, but a person who chases fantasies has no sense. Another scripture that reinforces this idea of hard work. If you work hard, you probably won't be struggling with food insecurity, but a person who chases fantasies, some translations say crazy dreams, that says they have no sense. I immediately think of people who chase those get-rich-quick schemes. It's like, this is it. This is going to be the thing. And they chase that, but they don't do the hard thing in their life. I also thought of Cousin Eddie this week, since we're just coming off Christmas, and how he stood there drinking that eggnog with Clark, and, they sold their house, and now they were living in this beat-up old motorhome in the driveway. And, it's like, you having trouble getting a job? Well, yeah, because I'm holding out for management. Like, he's not ready for management. You got to work your way up to management. And some people aren't willing to work because they're holding on to some empty dream or chasing some fantasy. And what we're learning here more and more is there's really no good payoff to being lazy. You got to work. What is the payoff to not being lazy? What is the payoff to hard work? Here it is: increased freedom. Doesn't that sound good? Who doesn't want more freedom in their life? I think everybody would say, yeah, I would like a little more freedom, a job with more freedom, a budget with more freedom. I want freedom to enjoy my days off. I want freedom to enjoy my retirement. So work hard. Don't be lazy. You got to be able to recognize it. If laziness is a problem in your life, are you a lazy person or not? I saw somebody that described it this way. If you're not sure if you're a lazy person, if you're with a group of people that are together moving a piano for somebody, there's 3 different types of people that move the piano. There's the people that come up from behind and are lifting and helping to push it forward. There's the people that get out in front that are lifting and that are guiding the way. And there's the one person that always says, I'll carry the stool. And, if you're the person that always looks to carry the stool, the easy job, maybe you just think you're smarter, right? I'm just saving my back, maybe. But I think it's important to work smarter. I think there's nothing in the Bible that says, find the hardest way to do something and do it that way. We're not talking about finding the hard way to do it. We're talking about working hard at whatever it is that we have in front of us to do. And I can't preach in Proverbs and talk about being lazy and working hard without one more look at this passage from Proverbs 6. Maybe you read it a few days ago. In verse 6, Solomon said, "Go to the ant, you sluggard." Some translations say, "Go to the ant, you lazy bones." He's calling us out. He said, "Consider its ways, be wise. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it stores its provisions in the summer, gathers its food at harvest." If you watch the ants, if you study the ants, they're diligent, they have goals, they work together, they're patient, they go crumb after crumb carrying it, and they don't have some big ant with a whip making them do it. They're just working together and they don't quit. And Solomon says the ants work harder than you do sometimes. So we got to learn from the ants. One more principle related to hard work. Here it is. The wise are people of integrity. The wise are people of integrity. And you can look at that point, analyze the sermon, and say integrity isn't actually work. That's just a quality that people have. But I would argue with you that integrity is very hard work. It is hard work to have integrity in this world today. If you go back to the beginning of the Bible in Genesis, if you just go through story after story, it's a story of one liar after another. Like, people just lie all the time. And then we get to read about their lies. Fortunately, most of us don't have ours exposed for the world, but being a person who walks with integrity today is challenging. We have opportunities to cheat a little bit here or there, cut some corners, fake our way through it. Some of you who might be in college or going to college, you maybe have heard the motto to get through college: God gave you eyes, so plagiarize. That's not it, okay? That's not integrity. That's not an encouragement from me. That's not what you should do. You can get caught anyway, but people who live what they truly say they are, that's what integrity is. And Solomon said in chapter 12, verse 19, "Truthful words stand the test of time, but lies are soon exposed. Deceit fills hearts that are plotting evil. Joy fills hearts that are planning peace. No harm comes to the godly, but the wicked have their fill of trouble. The Lord detests," it means he hates, lying lips, "but he delights in those who tell the truth." Telling the truth stands the test of time. If you lie, you think, I can hide it, I can get away with it. It's going to be exposed. Most lies end up being exposed at some point. It'll come out. The truth will come out. There's a lot of examples, and sometimes we think we're getting away with it in our world, but most of you have experienced a lie that got exposed. And if you think you're getting away with it, eventually it comes out. We see it in our own lives. We see it in the big picture of the world. I mean, even famous people, big-time politicians. Remember President Clinton? I did not have sex with that woman. Well, we found out that was a lie. Eventually, our lies are hard to cover up. And in Proverbs chapter 10, verse 9, Solomon said, "The man of integrity walks securely, but he who takes crooked paths will be found out." If you're going to be found out in the end, why not be honest in the beginning? I admit there's times in my life I haven't felt secure. There's times I've walked with insecurity because I've said something to someone and then I've done something different over here. Or I've said something over here, done something different over there. And not some big moral failure type of thing, but just something that isn't lining up. Like my actions didn't fully match my words. And when you do that, when you live like that, it makes you feel insecure because you're afraid that people are going to figure you out. And more importantly than people figuring you out, that is not what God has called us to. That's a hard way to live. So what is the payoff? The payoff of doing the hard work of integrity is a life of security. There's security in having integrity. It's the smart thing to do. When you tell the truth, you don't have to worry about what lie you told to what person. You can eliminate that insecure feeling of, what if somebody finds out? You have security in your relationship with God because you're not participating or playing a game that God hates. In Proverbs 11, verse 1, Solomon said, the Lord detests the use of dishonest scales, but he delights in accurate weights. Some of you might read that and think, I'm recording my weight every day on this diet, and so God is angry if I lie. Listen, that's not what this is about at all. What he's talking about is when they were buying and selling goods, sometimes they would use a scale to see what you had to pay, and they would put their thumb on one side of the scale to force a customer to pay more. And he says, that's wrong. God hates that. We do that today. You can overcharge a customer. You can intentionally underbid a job. You can manipulate the books. You can cheat on your taxes, steal from your employer a little bit. You can get away with stuff. I remember when my wife and I were in college and we had just gotten married and we were in college and working at the same time. We were working at a restaurant and as servers, and so making tips, which was great. And there was tax on tips. So I remember, though, back then, we weren't using credit cards so often, so it was mostly cash. So, come home with a whole wad of cash. It was awesome. But then every 2 weeks, we were supposed to report how much we made in tips. And they would add that to our paycheck so taxes could be taken out. And I did what everybody else was doing. Lie. Just like, don't tell them the whole thing. That's your money. You don't get paid that much anyway. You need that money. You got to pay your bills. And I remember that, feeling a little guilty about it, but you know what? Everybody was doing it. And yeah, I feel guilty as I confess this in front of you today. You're probably thinking a lot less of me now. But in our lives, we're all faced with choices like that. Decisions, are we going to have integrity or not? And, nobody is going to notice. In my job, everybody fudges things a little bit. Our integrity brings joy to God. And whether you're the one giving orders in a multi-billion-dollar company or whether you're the one taking orders at a fast food restaurant, never stop working hard with integrity and having a heart of a servant. One more thing about integrity that Solomon spoke about was it also means serving your boss or your employer, your company well. And that's an arena of service and hard work we forget about sometimes, but he reminds us there's a reward for that, a reward of security. In chapter 27, verse 18, he said, workers who tend a fig tree are allowed to eat its fruit. In the same way, workers who protect their employer's interest will be rewarded. There's wisdom when you realize that there's security found in your job when you work hard to protect the interests of your employer or your boss. It's common sense wisdom that often gets forgotten in today's world. There's so much in this book of Proverbs about working hard. As I wrap this up, let me read you one more verse from Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 3. Solomon said, commit your work to the Lord, and then your plans will succeed. Commit your work to the Lord. I asked you this question to think about this. Who are you working for? And we could all yell out the name of the company that we work for, but who are you really ultimately working for? I don't know where we thought up this crazy idea that the only work that God cares about is the work we do in the church or the work we do on the mission field. But God cares about all of our work. He cares about what we do Monday to Friday, what you get paid for, the work that you do. It all matters to God. In Colossians chapter 3, I'll close with a verse from the New Testament. The Apostle Paul said, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for men. Work at all you do, work hard at it for the Lord with all your heart. The job that you're going to tomorrow, whether you love it, whether you hate it, whether you're in the middle, do it for the Lord. The schoolwork that you got facing you, do it for the Lord. The chores you have to do around the house this afternoon, do them for the Lord. If you have to shovel snow again in the next couple weeks, shovel snow as if you're doing it for the Lord. Ultimately, hard work is the path that leads to a fulfilling, successful life. A successful life, I think, is something we all want. That's the wisdom. Now, will we apply it? Let's pray. God, thank you so much for the opportunity to share your word this morning. Thank you, God, for Proverbs and for all the practical wisdom we're learning for our lives this month. God, help us to apply all we've learned today about hard work in all the arenas, whether we're working in the middle of our career, whether we're in school, whether we're retired and volunteering, whatever it is, God, help us to do it all for your glory. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.